Hey, hey. I'm gonna wait for Holiday Phillips to join me, and all of you, for that matter. Yeah. I think you are joining me right now, correct? Are you in? Connecting. Yes.
Hi.
Here we are. Hello, hello. So nice to see you. I've been having this conversation in my head many times.
Yeah, me too. Really, really good to be here.
you know. And in fact, I'm at first I was wondering, should we have this conversation in public? Maybe we should just deal with our own dirty laundry ourselves. But then I thought, no, actually, there's such juicy content here, just such juicy, good things that I want to, in some way, kind of share with people so that they, because I feel so fortunate in the way we worked this out that I think, and I think we are so not alone with this. This is such a thing that's happening everywhere at this moment that I thought, let's do it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, me the same. And also knowing that I'm coming into this conversation with so many nerves because when we had the conversation in just you and me, it was like, yeah, just put everything out on the table. But it's different when there's an audience in some way.
Yeah. It's like you see all these names appearing. It's like our conversation is now being listened to by all these people.
Yeah,
But all right, why don't we start with where this begins? What
yeah,
happened? And I think that's probably the most logical way to go about this, right?
yeah. To try and keep, I'm not, we know we've been talking about stands, mine keeps dropping, so I might have to keep readjusting it.
Go ahead, because you're the one who reached out to me first.
So you
Reaching
want me
out to
to,
me is probably not even the right way of. No, actually, the context I think is this, people. You wrote to me, and we're going to tell what happened. We're going
yeah,
to go the story at both levels. The facts. This is what happened. Phase one, phase two, phase three. But then there is. This is what happened inside me, and this is what happened inside you. That each time kind of powered the next installment in our little story. And I think that's the really interesting part. It's like we're both really interested with the amount of stuff this brought up for each of us. And
yeah,
the multiple moments when this could have gone completely off the tracks and just become a total shit show.
yeah.
So I'm less interested in how well we did. I'm just so interested in how many pitfalls we were able to avoid.
Okay, so you want me to go tell the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was probably back in about mid-June, I did an infographic post on my Instagram about debate versus dialogue. And I actually said in the post, so this thinking isn't mine, but I've just made this infographic based on what I've learned in my, because I'm a social researcher in my years of doing research. Here's an infographic about debate versus dialogue. And then I think probably was it maybe about a month later, I woke up in the morning and I had like one or two messages in my Instagram DM from people in my community saying, "Oh my gosh, have you seen Esther Perel's latest Instagram post? It's exactly the same as yours." And the first thing that I thought actually, I went and looked at the post. I was like, okay, they're really similar. And the first thing that I thought was like, amazing. Me and Esther Perel think the same thing because I'm a fan. But then I started getting more and more messages from people saying, I can't believe Esther Perel's copied your work. And then people starting to say, because we were really at the apex of fury and fiery explosion of conversation about race relations at that time. And then I started having people message saying, this is another example of white women appropriating black women's work. this is awful, this woman needs to be cancelled, etc., etc. So I went on this whole, and that happened really probably within the space of about 2 hours from when I woke up to when I had like 20, 30 messages. And yeah, I went on this whole journey where first of all I had thought, amazing, me and Esther Perel thought the same thing. And then I started to feel this kind of indignation rising within me, like, oh yeah, maybe she has copied my work. Maybe this is an example of white women appropriating black women's work. What's going on here? And I had this mixture of kind of doubting myself, and within the context of because I speak a lot about race, I've been accused consistently of being too compassionate in my approach to race relations.
So I was going to get the non-compassionate version. I was going to get the one who was finally going to stand up.
Yeah,
Lucky
exactly.
me,
Yeah.
lucky me.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt this pressure as well of feeling like, if I don't say anything, am I being silenced as violence? Am I just being kind of a black woman pandering to white supremacy, which is what I've been accused of, because of my work talking about compassion. So I sent you an email saying, essentially, I've had these messages from people. A lot of people are saying this is an example of white women appropriating black women's work. I could really hope it's not. What's going on? But there was some heat in my email. It wasn't just kind of a like, hey, how's it going? There was some heat, and there was some implicit accusation of, hey, white women appropriating black women's work. Like, what the fuck's going on here? So that was what happened from my end.
So I received this email. Oh God. And so many things. I mean, part of me, I feel the edge, and I feel like you're doing me the courtesy, but I think you're being really, I think you think that you're making a real effort to give me the courtesy, when I think it's a basic thing you should be doing, is to give me the courtesy before you accuse me. And I have my indignation, like, don't you know me? I mean, don't you know that I quote everywhere, that I'm such a stickler for making sure that I attribute my comments, that this thing I've been using since the late 90s on a worksheet, and that it's so common knowledge, and I've never heard about you, kind of thing, like, but not, anyway, I had all of this, like, I'm a good person, that notion of, and you are misjudging me, and I'm well aware that at this moment you have the power because they will believe you, and I'm well aware that it doesn't really matter these days if you are the guilty one or not. Other white people have done so, and so I'll pay the price for those who have been let loose, basically. And I'm thinking, whoa, this thing is so much bigger than just you and me. This thing is like, there's us, there's our context, then there's the climate of the moment. And the minute I'm accused, everything I'm going to say is defensive. I can't just simply say, so nice to meet you. I will really reassure you. No, absolutely not. I actually really think that this is an interesting moment where we can choose between debate and dialogue. And I love the fact that you wrote this letter to me. And I'm taking it as an invitation to dialogue. But boy, it took a moment as well to just kind of come down my high horse and come down my hurt, in a way. Like, I prize my integrity. How is it possible that you that you could think of such a thing? But what was very, very interesting is that I didn't send that letter. And that's the first thing. So I also saw that you said, I don't really like cancel culture, but implied was, but I could use it, and I'm thinking, I've been waiting for this. Someday somebody's going to come after me. This is kind of, this is it. This is my moment, kind of thing, but not on this, decade. And then I began to think, she took time to write this letter. This letter didn't come easy to her because she actually didn't go with her gut. And then I thought, I'm going to take time to write my letter. It took a day, it's not like we left it sitting a long time, but I really edited myself. I wrote the version that I needed to get out first, but then I went to my team, and my team kind of said, this is how this would come across. And it became not what I want to say, but maybe how you would hear it, how this would appear in the context of the moment. In this climate today, you can't say something like this because it would be interpreted, in this way. And I'm thinking, what a minefield, what a minefield, Can we be really honest, So I wrote back to you and I said, honestly, I absolutely did not. I actually have been using this worksheet for a long time. But it shows that we really value the same things and that we are interested in some of the same work, and nice to meet you, kind of thing. And then I hoped that it would land in the right spot.
Yeah.
Back
Which
to
it
you.
did. Which it did. And actually it was so interesting for me because actually the experience that I had when I received your email back was just relief. It was like an exit. What did you call it on a plane? Like an exit valve or an exit route. Yeah, exactly. Where it was like, thank God I don't have to engage in this in a kind of conflictual way. And for me it was like this deep reflection of seeing like how I, in some ways, well, so much was going on inside me, in some ways kind of betrayed my own instinct because I felt like there was the pressure from the broader culture to not be a doormat, to not be a Black woman who supports white women appropriating Black women's work, to kind of be of the moment. So it was like a relief that I didn't have to do that. And also, it really caused me to look inside myself and be like, where was I coming from when I sent that email? Because whilst it was like, I put in lots of qualifiers, like I don't believe in cancel culture, lots of people are saying this to me, there was still heat in the email. There was still some accusation from me, not just from other people. And I think it took a lot of pain, really, to look inside myself and see that to a certain extent, I could have just said, hey, some people have messaged me to say that they think that you copied my post. I'm sure that's not the case, but like, can we talk about it? But I didn't just say that. I also brought in the issue of race. And I had to look deep inside myself and see that to a certain extent, I could feel that in that situation, that granted me an element of power. And I weaponized that power. And I think it was really painful for me to see that because I see myself as a person of integrity. And in seeing that I did that, I had to kind of switch my perspective of taking myself out of victim and kind of into perpetrator, and seeing that I was both.
I think you have to repeat this, Holiday, and somebody was asking, your last name is Holiday Phillips. Go find him. And the posts are both on her Instagram page and my Insta page. But I think this is so interesting, right? That there is a power to victimization as well. And that at that moment, you are not just victim, you can also become perpetrator. And I, who am normally seen in the reverse at that moment, start to experience myself as if she wants to. It has nothing to do with if I did or if I didn't. The story will take a meaning on its own. And that is an awareness too. It's like, that makes me say, oh, Perel, chill a second and think for a moment and don't antagonize. Be kind, be real, don't antagonize, thank her. Because I was like, why should I thank her for something that she should be doing in the first place? Well, should, no, she shouldn't necessarily. And if she doesn't want to, she won't. So you may just as well say, it was a nice thing to do and I really appreciate it. And that felt really real the first time I said it like that to you.
Yeah. Like a humanization of me.
And I felt the relief when you wrote back, but I didn't know that it was the relief that you wouldn't have to go on the attack. I didn't know that. I just thought, oh, she's not. Now, I have to add, I told you this. In the meantime, I met somebody that same evening who happens to know you and who said to me, she's a very nice person, meaning you can talk to her. She's reasonable. She's not just out there to get people. And that really reassured me that if I put myself out there, there will be an interlocutor on the other side. There'll be somebody with whom I can just really say, you know what, this is what we're talking about. Let's test it on our own, on ourselves, kind of thing, rather than just, you know, talking about it with nice infographics. Can we really be in the dialogue that we're talking about? And it helped to have one person just say, no, it's lucky this happened with her. She's not out to get people. He didn't say, you know, she will be relieved if she doesn't have to. He just said she's not out to get people. She's a very nice, reasonable person. And that just said, okay, then I can just reach out, kind of thing. And so I really liked your answer. And then I said, let's meet, let's talk, because then I thought email has reached its limit, and I want to meet this woman. Because now I started to become curious about your process. What, you know, I had kind of been in mind the whole time, and now I wanted to know what's it like for her. You know, does she believe me? But after I want her to see me as a good person was over, then I became just really, I can see the pressure she was under. That was my first realization of what you may be going through. It's like, for her to say, no, I'm not going to go after her, you know, and for her to, and that will make you more lonely sometimes. It's like you will be rewarded if you go after me or after anybody. It's not this is not about me per se. And I just thought, wow, it takes a very strong, confident person to go against the masses, to go against the herd mentality, to go against this is the time for vengeance, not just for justice, kind of thing. And then I began to say, I would love to know what it's like for her.
Yeah, and I think that actually that, even as I'm speaking to this here, I feel this kind of fear within me of maybe my own judgment or my own perceived judgment, or my own perception of the judgment that other people will have of me for saying, well, for kind of not contextualizing this enough within the broader historical narrative of what's going on, or for kind of excusing or allowing or focusing on something that doesn't really matter, when actually, when we're talking about race, the institutional oppression is where we should be focusing, and not this one-on-one situation that we had together. But my whole work is really about how the interpersonal maps onto the systemic. So I kind of couldn't not see how this individual situation that we had mapped onto a lot of things that I see out in the world. And something I really think about a lot myself is like the difference between justice and vengeance, and that somehow both seek to restore fairness, but justice, I don't know what you think, but justice says, I have been hurt and I so disagree with this hurt. I don't want this hurt to ever happen to anyone again. Something like that. Whereas vengeance says, I've been hurt and so I want you to hurt. And when I look inside myself, it's like, if I think specifically about race, there's obviously other things, like, I think I want both. I think that there is somewhere deep in my soul a desire for both. And so when I kind of came, you know, when I was going through that process, it was like, I wanted to say, well, no, this is just about justice. But if I really get honest with myself, that wouldn't have been true. It was like, what was happening at that time was like, for the first time, I think in my life, I could really see all of these ways that I've experienced pain as a result of my race, that I'd never really been able to put language to, because I didn't feel like there was space for it. And then somehow in that time, it was suddenly like, wow, as Black people, there are the ears to hear this. And so I was feeling all of this pain and powerlessness, and like almost like a volcano of stuff that had been suppressed. And part of me wanted, as well as looking at the broader social picture, other people to feel that pain, and particularly people who I perceive as being kind of, even, you know, subconsciously, of course, I don't think that you as an individual oppressed me personally. We didn't know each other, but there was something in that time where it was like, no, I want both. And that was really hard to see because um, my whole work is about justice. And I never even considered that weaved into that justice was also a desire for vengeance. And I really see that out in the broader picture. I almost feel like I'm going to cry saying this because it's so, I feel a lot of shame, and I feel a lot of betrayal of my community to say that. Um, but I have to say that I think that's true. Um, and God, how hard it is to say that, which in itself is strange, right? Yeah.
You know, but my experience at this moment is I hear you talk about the desire for vengeance, but I don't feel your vengeance. I actually feel your embracing complexity, your ability to live with complex feelings, emotions inside of you, and trying to sort them out. And I think that I actually feel your humanity in this moment. I am not afraid of you or angry at you or judging of you, but I'm wondering if when do we each fear more judgment from our own communities? That would be a thing I'm thinking at this moment, rather than just us two. I think justice has different faces. One is restitutive justice, which is about having the other person really um, ask for forgiveness. And the other is retribution, and that's the vengeance, that's the punishment. You can seek justice by punishing the other person, and you can seek justice by having the other person understand what they've done to you and own that. And I completely get the vengeance. I don't think it's far-fetched one bit, and it's not like I need to, you know, one doesn't need my confirmation of any of this. It's like I'm a tiny speck in history. This is a much bigger story than me. Um, I just appreciate the fact that that you let one voice speak louder than the other when at the moment that you reached out to me. And I am very aware that that meant that you needed to say to other people, I'm not going to do what you're asking me. I'm going to listen to something, a voice inside of me. And that voice, when you stand alone like that, is much more lonely.
Mm.
It's that's what I think by one can be rewarded by, rather than I'm going to follow my own moral compass, if you want, and I depended on that. That is true. For us to do this whole conversation that we had, I had to, I knew that I hope that's what she's going to do. I mean, that I cannot dictate. I don't know who this person is and what are all the forces around her. So this is true in couples all the time. I mean, generally, when people are polarized in a relationship, one person thinks of themselves as much more complex than the other. They think, I'm layered. I have ambiguity. I have nuance. You're simple. You're just two-dimensional. You're good or bad. And I have all these very complex things rolling inside of me. This is not an unusual thing. I think for me, I said it a little bit before. What was so amazing is when I read our letters, I could see every moment where we could have fallen into the traps. And that was a lesson for me. It's like, I can be right, but I'll be alone. You can be right and you'll be alone. Now, we don't care about each other, so then what if I never see you or hear from you again, or vice versa? But same thing is in a couple, in other relationships where people do care about each other. It's the decision. Do I want to be alone and right and live with my little beliefs, or do I actually want to cross the bridge and go find out what's on the other side and humanize the other person? I just got really interested in what's it like for you, where you are at your, at this moment in time, where you are at in your own life with your community, to say, I'm going to go follow my own compass here. And throughout history, this has been the case. You know, who are the people who don't follow the masses in the moment, the cry to war, you know? That's what I think for me was really important here. Is like, and then I asked you, you know, who's your family? Like, where did you learn that? So as a good therapist, I start to think, you know, it's like, what are your mom and dad like, you know? And then you told me that my father's a politician, my mother's a psychologist. So I thought, oh, you got some good juju, you know? It's like, I can, because it's, I really think these days to engage in conversation, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to want to reach out, to cross the, is not what is most emphasized. This is not the moment we're in. That's why we call it the cancel culture. And I think you went not just toward me, you also went against a movement of sorts. Not a movement as in a crowd of people, but a zeitgeist, you know, a trend, a pressure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think one of the things, even within ourselves, it's like there can be competing and contradicting things going on. So it's like, I'm sure even in this dialogue, there'll be people who are thinking, oh, actually, it isn't, as I'm sharing honestly what my process was and what happened to me, who will think, oh, that's actually not what happened. That wasn't the journey you were supposed to be going on. You know, you're gaslighting yourself or whatever it is. But actually, that there's a real need almost to put people into a narrative that fits with our narrative of the world. So even if, as I'm saying, okay, well, this was my experience, there'll be people who cannot accept that because it doesn't fit with their narrative of the world. And I find that so fascinating, particularly within the context of these broader issues, because all what we're saying is everybody should be free to feel, think, and kind of be in their fullness of their humanity. But there's always a caveat, but only if that humanity fits with what I believe it should be. And I think that's kind of what we were both getting at with the original debate versus dialogue, is like, in a debate, this has to fit with my existing framework of the world. This has to confirm what I think about you or people like you. But dialogue says, maybe I don't know. Maybe you're seeing something that I can't see. Maybe I don't know you. And that's the kind of big difference I feel when I mapped what happened with us. And really more so my fear of going into this conversation, what I was afraid of, it was that. It was being judged by other people's framework of who I should be and what I should think. Yeah.
I mean, some of this is happening as we speak, interestingly, you know.
Yeah, I know. I kind of looking into the comments a little bit.
We are both doing exactly the effort, like between, you know, the whisperers, you know, the Greek chorus behind us that wants us to see things that we may not see, or think about the corners we're not going to, and then others who are saying, yes, 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 this is really, so, but I was telling you, it's like, it brings up for me when I wrote the book, you know, about infidelity, because if I didn't say something was bad, you know, it instantly could have been interpreted as therefore I was saying that it was good, and that there was so little room for nuance, and that I, for a while, couldn't write anymore. I was so constantly hearing, you know, the voices, that I froze. I literally froze, and it brought back this for me. It's like we both, you know, work in intergroup relations, in diversity, in working with people from different backgrounds. And I think trying to avoid the polarization is what we are so committed to. And I thought, if I can't do this myself when it's happening to me, then I start to question my real, you know, imposter story, right? Like, I have to be able to reach this person, and I hope she will read me the way I plan to, not just because of her and I, but because I want to know that I can do that which I think we are both telling the people that we work with, and hearing the people who are listening to us to do it. So, you know, that's the first thing, is really, for me, what was very helpful is venting first, but not sending it. You know, getting that out of the way, you know, just doing the whole, how dare you, and who are you, and me, and, you know, and all of this stuff, my version of it. And then slowly basically saying, what will be helpful here? What really matters? I mean, after all, you wrote a post about debate versus dialogue. Why don't you engage in a dialogue rather than, you know, attack, counterattack, blame, defend, you know, do the debating? So it's exactly that. It's like, can I now do this very thing that I'm talking about, supposedly? So there is the first accountability. And what about you?
So actually, when we were talking at just you and me before, it was like almost, I was saying that actually, so I'm trying to float this and see what you think. For me, actually, there was some importance, I think, in taking the moment, but also not taking too much time to rationalize myself out of the primitive instinct. Because like I said, like when I sent the email, it was like, you know, it was as it was, but there was also heat in it because that was authentic to me too. So for me, it was like, I've been thinking about the balance between compassion and boundaries. And for someone, you know, when we think about our ideal self versus our real self, and someone who would say their ideal self that's sort of super compassionate, and it's almost like we can overcorrect before we can overcorrect and end up not saying what we actually want to say. So for me, it was like somehow almost the opposite. There was value in me bringing some reactivity into it because it brought the conversation to a really honest place rather than me having to put it to through many filters. So we were just talking around the issue rather than at the issue.
And then I said, what am I missing? What can I learn here? You know, is there something I, you know, kind of get out of my own way? You know, this isn't, instead of this is an attack, this became more of an opportunity. And then I thought, you know, I want to meet her. So this is my next thing, is after 2 emails, we need to speak. I need to see your face. I need to see your eyes. I need to hear the inflections of your voice, because that will give me so much more information about what is the territory I'm in and how do I reach out to this person. And the last thing I want is to offend her and to step on her and to, you know, and all of that. But I can't just say this, you know, because I'm a nice person. I really need to know where she's coming from. And it's very hard to really know where somebody is coming from in a small email, even though they were not that short, our emails. So then I said, would you be willing to speak with me, you know, to have a conversation? And then you said yes. And I thought, I think now we are really in the same groove. We're on the same page here. We have a similar sense of not what we're going to say, and we may fundamentally disagree, but we like the approach. We share the dialogue approach. Let's go for it. Without being, we were never super sweet and Pollyannish, and we didn't sweep anything, actually. Very important as well.
Yeah.
So
tell me, can I ask you a question? So I think it was really interesting is that some of, because we're talking in dialogue, and then I also can't help looking at some of the comments that are coming through, and some of the criticism that we're both getting for being in a conversation, which is like, we're both being honest, I guess, about what we feel. And I find that such a, it's like, what do you do with that? You know, you engage in a dialogue that is honest to you. You're coming from the most authentic place that you can at that time. And still you're criticized for the way that you hold that dialogue. So it's like, yeah, what do you do with that? I'm going to go away and think about that, but I'd love to ask you what you think about that.
I think, I mean, honestly, without wanting to talk about my books, you know, but I spent 2.5 years in this. because I was writing about a topic about people have very intense feelings and beliefs and gut reactions, infidelity, adultery. So I had to really know I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people will find what I say refreshing, validating. I want to hold the complexity. I want to be able to live with contradictory feelings inside of me. I need to help my patients do that. I think that's what the world demands of us. And some people want to simplify. They want to be categorical. They want to just say, yay, nay, you know, you're in, you're out, you're good, you're bad, you know, you're the victim, you're the perpetrator. And I don't want to join that. And so it's giving up being liked by all, first of all. And it's not easy. It's not easy because you just say, but just listen another minute, just pay attention. But don't you want that? Isn't that the world you want to live in? I mean, wouldn't you want that from your partner or from your friend or from your colleague at work, you know, rather than just, you know, and then you find your allies. I think that's why this word is so incredibly well chosen. You find the people who share a little bit of that same worldview, who are willing to live with history inside of them, and not and seek justice that isn't always vengeance, if you want to put it like that. So that's my second thing. I hope that people stay long enough. That's the other thing. You know, I've talked with very Christian evangelical groups that, you know, at first look at me like I'm the devil incarnate that comes to talk about sex with them, you know. And then one of the most powerful feedbacks I ever got was a conference, you know, a Christian conference, where people wrote and they said, at first I was going to get up, I was going to leave, you know, like people can leave here. I wasn't going to listen to this shit, you know. And then I saw that pastor such and such didn't get up. He stayed seated, or she stayed, you know. And then I thought, and then as I began to listen more, it began to make somewhat more sense to me. And I just thought, these are interesting people, because the ones who believe and agree with me up front, so what's the point? But the ones who stayed just long enough to be willing to become curious about their own biases, about their own stances, rigidity, those become really people that I value, because I'll give it to you and then I'll shut up. It's a little bit the same way that when patients come to therapy, and you know, there's often one that is really willing to be there and the other person who is a lot more skeptic. Like, I don't believe in therapy, I want to do this myself. And I always shake the hand of the skeptic. I don't say to the other person, so great for you to be here. I say to the skeptic, because the one who wants to be here, it's not a big deal, they're easy. The one who had to come even though they don't believe in it, they're the ones that I really need to, you know, thank. And because I don't know if I could. Would I go see a movie that I think up front is stupid? But if you are willing to come to therapy while you think it's stupid, and you're still sitting in front of me, then I respect you double. I think that's the same thing I want people in this community. It's like, stay a minute longer and let it rub you. Let me rub you wrong, let Holiday rub you wrong, and then realize, this rubbing is actually, she's saying something. As a minute, let me take a look there, and then soften it for a split second. Don't just trash it and say, you know, that. But I do it too. I think you probably do it on occasion too. It's not like we are any different from anyone listening here. But that is a place where I think you start to create change. It's just let it rub you wrong for a minute.
Yeah.
It won't continue being so stingy, so sticky.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And then that thing of giving up being liked by all and approved of by all, that's powerful.
Is it scary for you that you think that after this, you're going to go look at how many people unfollow you? I mean, I could do the same. How many people are going to unfollow us?
I think it's empowering to be honest. If I'm honest. And also, this weird thing for me is that, you know, I wrote an article on allyship in like May, which went viral. Before that, I I have maybe like 40,000 followers on Instagram, but before that I had like, I don't know, a few hundred. So I could do or say or think anything because I was just me, holiday, living in North London, just chatting to my friends. You know, I didn't have any, people didn't have a perspective on what I was saying because there were no people. So I think that there is a empowerment for me and a responsibility that I feel to be honest. It's scary, but
But you went from 40,000 to 1,000,000 in a swoop, something like that, right?
Oh no, 1,000 to 40,000, not 1,000,000.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. It feels like this. It suddenly
yeah.
feels like now I'm not just talking for myself. Now I'm talking for a whole group of people who is listening to what I have to say. And therefore, I no longer just get to decide what suits me.
Yeah.
Now, right, you become a voice, a leader, an influencer.
Or certainly it can feel like the risk is higher. I think that's maybe what it is. It can feel like the risk is higher. And then again, to slip into indignation, well, you don't know me. This is just one 30-minute conversation. You don't know my history. You don't know my perspectives. And all of those things that come up. And it's like, okay, let me look at that. And I think that for me is the invitation anyway, which is that just because I now have this tiny platform, that doesn't mean that I betray all of the things that I've believed in up till now, which is to examine myself, to look at my role in everything, to be radically honest about what I have and haven't done. You know, that's my path. That's my role here, or my feeling of my sense of what one of my purposes here in life, and I think that certainly comes through in this conversation. But yeah, it's scary for sure.
In case it helps you, I'm scared a little bit, but I'm particularly just really, it feels right. I think there needs to be more conversation like ours. They're not perfect. They're filled with glitches. There's lots of things we leave out. But I really think that in a moment where our world is more and more polarized, it actually is refreshing. There's nothing glamorous about what we're doing. It's just simply refreshing to be having a truthful conversation. That's it. That, you know, otherwise I have a feeling like we constantly talk about truth and authenticity, but actually we don't live really in a climate at this moment where you're allowed to really say what you think, because you're too afraid that somebody's going to come from behind you and smack you. You know, and rightly so, they will. It's not like we are inventing it, but I think that to create, you know, and what I really love about our conversation is that we haven't used the word safe yet. Because it's not a safe conversation, actually. It's a dangerous conversation. It's a treacherous conversation, but it's a conversation that both of us felt we really want to have. And we'd actually, if we can have it in front of people and somebody can learn something and say, oh, I've got someone I need to go do this with, then we will have taught something, you know. But it's not like we are feeling good in this moment. This is not about feeling good. This is about, I don't even know what it is, what we would say. It's about what? It's about doing something that needs to be done at this moment more often than it is, and in public, because much of what is in public at this moment is people smearing each other, and putting each other down and shutting each other up. And rather than, it doesn't feel very nice to think that, you know, you could have just gone after me, even if it wasn't me, just because you need to go after somebody, you know, or I could just have, you know, told you, you know, and who the hell are you? You know, on what basis do you think, you know, you can come after me, because God knows who I am. And all of that kind of, you know, not pretty. You know, I love the word primitive. I like it. We're filled with primitive emotions. And the goal is to contain them. That's what civilization is. A containment of our primitive sides.
Yeah, it's stepping into
as Freud
an
said, I
ocean.
should quote him.
Who said?
I said Freud. I should
Freud
at
said.
least give the old man his attribution, you know.
It's stepping into the ocean of complexity, which is like an ocean of shit that you're going to have to wade through. And like you said, like, you know, that can always collapse into a shit show. So yeah, it's not safe, but it feels good.
So what would you say to people? Now that you've heard this, here is what I would love for you to take with you. Like away from us, you who have done this with so many people, and this is your work, right? Companies, where places where you go in and you are continuously helping people listen, understand, bridge.
Yeah. Let me think on that for a second. What would I want people to take away? I think there's a couple of things that I'm really keen for, that I think for people to take away. I think one of the first things is something that you said, like we need to, I don't know how you phrased it, but you said, sit with the rub, in the rub for a while. And I think one of the things I would invite people to take away is that if this conversation rubbed you, to sit with that and ask why. It may be that once you sit with that, you're still like, yeah, they were talking shit, I don't agree. And that's fine. But to sit with it long enough to know that you've given it the space to at least question yourself, you know, because we're all coming with our primitive instincts. So to be humble enough to consider that maybe yours are there too. That's on the individual scale. I think probably on the broader scale, the thing I really feel passionate about being brought into the conversation is that when we're thinking about big and necessary social changes, I don't want anyone to come away from this conversation thinking that I don't care about the great movement to racial awakening that is happening. Obviously I do. I'm about to have a son who's going to be coming into this world as a black boy. I care about this. But what I feel passionate about is that we are careful not to bring in the systems of violence into our movement towards a better future that we're trying to move away from. Blaming, shaming, victimization. We need to be aware of that and see where that's happening. And I know that it's happening because I saw it in myself. So those would be the things that I would want people to take away, like just be open to the possibility that there is more complexity going on than is palatable to admit.
I think that I would say one of the things I learned was at first I took it all about me, like because you wrote to me. And then I basically went into Zoom. I removed, into a wide angle lens from Zoom to wide angle. And I just said, this is not about me. I happen to be the person, but, you're part of a much bigger story here for a second. And as I began to do that, I calmed down. It actually was really like, okay, now think for a second. This is what happens each time. Start by basically saying, no, I have not plagiarized. We actually both, share the same sources on this thing. It's such a basic piece of content. And then, if you really go into the righteous mind, into the indignant mind, it's like I could almost have gone to a place where I would want you to apologize for accusing me. It can get really perverse for a moment. So it's very important to just say, watch what the world we live in, see the moment you're in. And this is you, but it's not just you. You're important, but not that important. So that's one thing. I think the second thing is answer kindly and respectfully and to the point. And don't make a big speech about, honestly, how you feel is probably not what she's interested in at this moment. She's interested in just knowing, yeah, I did, and I apologize, I'm sorry, I'll make a correction. No, I didn't. Three, let her know that you really see this as an interesting opportunity to actually engage in this conversation, because because I actually wanted to learn, how does this thing work? What shall I do one day when this happens? Because it's bound to happen. It may happen to you too, and for other things, you know. So there's that, like, I think I have a right partner here for this. And I actually want to know, you know, and I want to know, which I asked you in our conversation, did I answer in a way that was useful to you? I wanted you to tell me if what I did landed well, or was there something I missed that I didn't know? I thought, learning opportunity, you know. And then the fourth one was deciding to make it public. Like, you know, how do we say we have something important that I think you can, lots of people could engage in and learn from, versus we are so important, and elevating ourselves for it, which I'm utterly not interested. Because we had our interesting conversations and we will have others. But it's more like, how do you say, here, people, this happened to us, but don't think about us. We're just here to be the vehicle for you, to venue for you to actually think about this in your lives and in the worlds that you live in. Translate this. Don't be literal about it. That is what I thinking now as we finish is really, you know, it doesn't matter if you agree with everything we say or we don't say. Take your opportunities of situations that you are in and see which ones are the nutty ones that actually you would like to go and rub yourselves with, and see if you can do something that is satisfying to you. You don't have to rate us. I mean, actually, and we don't need to rate ourselves. We just made this available for, you know, because we thought what you usually hear is people screaming at each other. Why don't we have a chance to let people hear two people who are talking to each other? And yeah, we're not talking at each other. We're not in that stage anymore. But, you know, we have things that we've experienced that are not nice, you know? And that's, now go do your thing. That's it's like, embrace complexity, sit with the nuance, slow down for a minute, and don't just think that being right and alone is the holy grail.
Yeah.
That's my final, you know, I wish you, little boy, to come into this nutty world with zest and vigor and joy and the laughter of a baby that can wipe away all the pain on the planet for a moment. Really, I hope all will go really well. And I will probably meet you on the other side of this in your new role, in your new identity.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really. Did we forget anything?
You know, I feel complete.
Good. Good. Great. Thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. And we have to save this.